All right. Thank you so much for your patience, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you're joining us today. Talo Falava, Ulavinaka, Maori, Yakwe, Kasanale, and all Pacific greetings to you all joining us this wonderful afternoon. Since this is our first webinar for the year, on behalf of myself and the team here at SPREP, we'd like to welcome you all to another exciting year from the PNEA team. Today, we're hosting the first of what promises to be many Talanoa sessions for this year. And today, we're joined by some good friends and colleagues from the AELERT network. That is the Australasian Environmental Law Enforcement and Regulators network. This is a very interesting network, and we're very pleased today to learn more about what the network has to offer and how Pacific practitioners can benefit from being part of AELERT network. But before we go into the nitty-gritty of our discussions today, for some of our formalities, I would like to also note that I'm joined here today by my colleagues. Right beside me, we have Mr. Vainupo Youngblood, who is our Environmental Monitoring and Reporting Advisor. You here will know him very well. And we also have here with us Mr. Uta Tofinga, who is the Environmental Assessment and Planning Officer here with SPREP. So thank you so much for joining us today. And maybe in line with our program, I'll pass it to my colleague Vai, just to set the scene for our discussions today. Over to you, Ansel.
Thank you, Ivan, and good morning and good afternoon to all of the colleagues and practitioners who are able to join us for this webinar today. Taro Falava and welcome. Thank you again for joining us for this important discussion, which is centered on how we can continuously strengthen environmental regulation across the Pacific. In saying this, I am pleased to welcome you on behalf of SPREP and the PNEA today, and also introducing the Australasian Environmental Law Enforcement and Regulators Network, or AELERT. AELERT, with its extensive network, embodies a wealth of knowledge and expertise that is invaluable to our work on environmental assessment across the region. The network has a track record for fostering innovation and collaboration on environmental law enforcement and regulatory support that can offer valuable tools and lessons for Pacific Island environmental practitioners. As we navigate the complexities of strengthening environmental governance in our region, we recognize that durable and lasting partnerships are critical. In this context, SPREP is exploring a partnership with AELERT to bolster our collaborative efforts in strengthening environmental governance in the Pacific. This partnership aims to enhance our capacity to advance environmental assessments, compliance, enforcement, and regulation in the region. Today's webinar is a precursor to what we hope will be a fruitful and impactful partnership, providing practical support and resources for environmental region. Furthermore, it serves as a platform for us to learn about AELERT, the work of the AELERT network, and also to discuss and discover how we can draw on their resources and initiatives and work in concerted effort to confront the environmental challenges unique to our region. I invite you to engage with today's presentations and discussions with an eye towards how you can apply AELERT's resources and networks to enhance your work and respective roles. And I look forward to our collective progress through today's enlightening Talanoa. Wishing you all the best. Safe work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ratu. There's no better way, I think, to start our Talanoa or discussion today. But colleagues, before I introduce our speakers who are eagerly waiting, as always, just some housekeeping rules for our discussions today. As you all know, the webinar today is being recorded, and we hope to store a recording of this discussion today on PNEA. So if you would like to revisit the discussion, or if any of your colleagues have missed the discussions, please visit the PNEA and watch the recording that will be uploaded. Also, we invite you all to engage in this discussion today. So I know you have a lot of perhaps questions for our two presenters today. So please drop those questions in the chat, and during our Q&A sessions after the presentations, we'll revisit all those questions. And lastly, we also kindly ask that you keep your mics muted. If you need to make an intervention during the presentation, please feel free to raise your hands and we'll give you the floor. Okay? And with that, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. So we have two great individuals joining us. First, we have Mr. Gregory Awood. Gregory is the Chief Executive Officer for AELERT. He has been leading the network's work since January of 2023, bringing his extensive expertise in regulatory compliance and stakeholder engagement to the forefront of environmental law enforcement. Greg has more than 20 years of experience in a range of environmental, regulatory, and leadership roles, serving as the Director of Water Regulation East at the Natural Resources Access Regulator, also known as the NRAR, in New South Wales. Thank you for joining us, Greg. Our next speaker is Mr. Andre Maynard. Andre is currently serving as the Senior Legal Officer at the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. He brings a comprehensive background in environmental law with extensive experience in environmental and planning law. Andre has been involved in advising on a wide range of regulatory matters, including waste management, pollution, and land use. Thank you so much for joining us, Andre. And with that introduction, I would like to hand the floor over to Greg and Andre to take us through the exciting presentation today. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Ivan. And on behalf of AELERT, our National Council, and all of our 250 member agencies, I'd just like to thank SHREP and the leadership team of SHREP for your leadership and your representation of the region. And same in terms of AELERT, we look forward to 2024 and 2025 and 2026 working with your organisation and with our other international partners as well. So thank you for your initiative and the time that you've provided AELERT today. Before I get stuck into what AELERT's about and the history, the current state, and where we're headed as a network of regulators, one of the most important things I do every day before I start meetings is acknowledge something much bigger than AELERT, which is acknowledging that I'm sitting on the traditional lands of the Bidjigal people. They're one of 29 clans of the mighty Eora Nation that's based on sand country in and around the Sydney Basin on the east coast of Australia. I like to acknowledge their leaders, their past leaders, their current leaders, and those leaders who are waiting in the wings, their future leaders, their elders past and present and emerging. their level of resilience and connection to country is so inspiring to every regulator in Australia. Their connection to country has been unbroken for the last 2,500 generations, over 60,000 years of connection. The current day society has a lot to learn from the Bidjigal people and those of the Eora Nation and all First Nations people in Australia. Something I do say a lot, Ivan, always was, is, and always will be that I'm sitting on beautiful Bidjigal land, sand country. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. I might just share screens before we get kicked off into going through the current state of the network. So today is really about hearing from you, but it's also about providing you with some information about what the network is all about, some of the practical tools that make a regulator, both an individual and an agency, connected to a community, so we don't get isolated, and we grow and mature as one big community, not as individuals. So I'll provide you with a bit of background of where the place was, where it's currently at, and where we're headed. But I'm really keen to hear from you and hear questions from you about your regulatory experience and what you would need from a regulator's, a practitioner's network. I'll move on. So as mentioned, AELERT stands for the Australasian Environmental Law Enforcement and Regulators Network. The most two important, I suppose, words or letters in our title is the last two. It's a regulators network. It's a network for regulators to support each other and to share resources, experiences, and approaches and tools. It's there so regulators don't get isolated. Ivan, you mentioned my previous regulatory experience. The most recent was as an independent water regulator in the state of New South Wales in Australia on the East Coast at a time of a drought. That came out of the Natural Resources Access Regulator was created out of a crisis of regulation in water at the time of a drought, where a new regulator was stood up to be credible, to be transparent, accountable, and effective and efficient in what it does. In creating NRA with my executive colleagues, we leaned on connections across the regulatory network. We couldn't have done it by ourselves. It's important for regulators at a practitioner level and an agency level to connect. I always have a saying, isolation isn't great for anyone. Doesn't do much for anyone. I think my cultural background is Lebanese, and I always say it's isolation might be good for a Lebanese monk in the north of Lebanon in the mid 1800s, but it's not good for a regulator. And regulators need a community to give them confidence, to learn from each other and support each other. But confidence is a key to a regulator. I've experienced in working as a practitioner with little confidence, and I've experienced working in a community that has given me confidence, and being a regulator is definitely more enjoyable when you have a level of confidence and you're backed by your peers within and outside your agency. So that's what AELERT provides our membership. We're membership based. We have about 250 members. Many of those are local governments in Australia and New Zealand. About 50 of those are state governments, and about 20 of those agencies are national government agencies. So it covers 3 levels of government. It's not just compliance and enforcement. Vi, you mentioned impact assessment and environmental assessment and approvals. It covers the whole regulatory system, from making laws to implementing them, to doing impact assessments, to incident management, to compliance and enforcement, auditing. It covers the whole craft of regulatory practice. The other point I just want to make, how AELERT's been used over the last 20 years is a regulatory stewardship platform. So it's there for agencies to support each other, big, medium and small. There's no hierarchy in AELERT. It's not such that national government agencies support state and state support local. It doesn't happen that way. The support is two-way. It's a give and take. A lot of agencies have as much to give as they take, but it's definitely a two-way support network, and a sharing hub. Now, sharing's the baseline for AELERT. That's the vanilla. What makes AELERT go above and beyond that is it's a platform for agencies to work on common problems that they face. And I'm yet, in 23 years, I'm yet to see one regulatory problem that is highly unique to that jurisdiction. We've all got similar problems, and we all can work together to solve them. And AELERT provides that platform for agencies to get together to solve regulatory problems. And I'll go through a bit of that a bit later on. But most importantly, it's a platform where regulators get together and they think, we could do this better, or we need to create this tool. If it doesn't exist, it's a platform to create it. So that's AELERT in a nutshell. It's a regulators network. There are environmental regulators in AELERT. There are non-environmental regulators in AELERT, like safety authorities, like building and construction commissions. It's for regulators and for regulators to support each other. I mentioned that AELERT's been operating for the last 20 years. So AELERT is my creation, not at all. Like, I'm really standing on the shoulders of giants there, but it was the creation of wildlife crime practitioners in the late 90s who were sharing intelligence, and who were working on cross-jurisdictional crime together. Then it was formalized in 2003. So it's just over 20 years old, AELERT. And we've had a number of leaders in the past who have carried that tradition, as I aim to do, of sustaining AELERT as that regulatory stewardship platform for all regulators across the whole spectrum. Now, I think this is the most, so that's a bit of background. So I'll go into now what's in it for members from a real practical sense, because what AELERT prides itself on is it's about 90% practical and about 10% theoretical. There always needs to be a bit of theoretical in there to put it in context and bring the philosophy in, but it's about 90% practical. One of the practical areas of AELERT is our resource library. This is a library where members upload resources, documents, plans, standard operating procedures, tools, approaches, lessons learned, but they also download them as well. It's there. It's an exchange hub, so members don't need to reinvent the wheel. If they're creating or reviewing a strategy, they don't need to do it from scratch. They can go into the resource library and see the diversity of what other agencies at the 3 levels of government have already created. that helps because it helps on all those costs that are associated with reinventing the wheel. Like starting from scratch takes time and money, but it also means that you tend to be alone when you're starting from scratch. Using the resource library and what's already uploaded there gives you a bit of awareness of what other regulators are doing in that space. So, for instance, in the work health and safety category of our resource library, there's job safety analysis. There's examples of body-worn camera policies. There's examples of work health and safety materials that other regulators do. Same with the investigations and audits. There's standard operating procedures, templates for seizing goods or interviewing. So there's a whole bunch of resources in that library, but it is a two-way street. It's there for members to upload what they're proud of and what they've worked on, and it's also a platform for members to download so they can use that material when they're redrafting, creating, or reviewing what they already have in place. So that's the resource library. It moves and it moves with the times. So it's forever changing, but it's a hub there for all members to use. And it's members only access the resource library. All right. Andre, do you have any thoughts that I might bring you in at this stage on the resource library and your experience with it?
Thanks, Greg. So to me, as I guess I can give the perspective as a member of AELERT, I commenced with the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation in 2019, having had, I guess, a history in private practice, practicing environmental law. So coming into and also non-government organisations as well, Aboriginal land councils. So then coming into the government space, I did see again that as Greg's talked about, the silo kind of component. So knowing that environmental law and environmental issues cross so many jurisdictions, nature doesn't have those boundaries. I saw that, a lot of the issues that were, I guess, the department was facing, as I started to get my head around them, the compliance issues, could benefit from absolutely bouncing ideas off others. So then, fortuitously, I became aware of AELERT, and I joined immediately and got stuck into the. I looked at the list here, and you can see in the library, it's divided up by various activities and also the groups. And so then I determined that the legal practice and policy group was worthwhile joining. What I became aware of perusing AELERT as the department was a member was the library itself to begin with. Just the huge amount of information that's available and again, as Greg said, it's not reinventing the wheel. There's been conferences that AELERT have hosted since the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and a lot of that information is relevant still and current around the principles of environmental law and compliance and the regulatory theory, and then the practical application of that. So actual tools that you can use that actually assist the people on the ground who are doing the real hard work, of compliance. I have such respect for our compliance investigators. To me, the work can't be done without those people doing their work to the utmost levels of professionalism to gather evidence to ensure the industry is doing what they need to do. And I believe that the library provides a lot of information to assist our compliance officers. So that's why I think there's a lot of value there. And I'll talk about it as we go on, but what I then saw joining the legal practice and policy group was that ability just to interact with your peers. There's the formal component, and then there's the informal component, and being able to share information and then transcribe that information into the library. As Greg said, it's a two-way street. So it's benefiting yourself from the informal networks and sharing to get ahead of emerging issues. And then once you do take that initiative and I guess formalize that information into something that can sit in the library, you do get a lot of benefit and job satisfaction out of seeing that being used by others. An example of that was the prosecutions database that I got involved with pretty early in my role in the legal practice and policy working group. I put my hand up to volunteer for a basic work, which Greg will talk about. But it was actually being involved that really I saw the benefit. And, we all know when we're in a compliance matter, for example, how do we know what's a reasonable prosecution? How do we explore what is a reasonable penalty? And this project, for example, gave an insight to, again, share knowledge across jurisdictions to enable the people who are doing the practical work, the inspectors and the lawyers and the policy officers, to have an insight into what's a reasonable compliance enforcement outcome. So I'll leave it there, Greg, and you can start talking about the groups if that's okay.
I sure can. I'll just see if I can change slides. Great. Thanks, Andre, for your first-hand experience with not only using the group, the library, but the network full stop. I might just touch on one of the bread and butter components of AELERT is our groups. We've got 16 communities of practice and they're functionally arranged. So it doesn't rely on the jurisdiction that you're working, the level of government that you're working, or even the subject matter that you're regulating in. They're functionally organised communities of practice. There's 16 of them. At the moment, we've got about 750 members, regulatory practitioners who are in these groups spread across those 16 communities of practice. Just to give you a bit of context, I'll pull out a couple and just describe a couple. So there's one in impact assessment that was created in about July or August, September last year. Within about 4 or 5 weeks, it had up towards 50 members join that group because there was a real need across the membership for impact assessment practitioners to get together, to share stories about risk-based approach when using a risk assessment, to share stories about public participation and engaging with stakeholders along the process, and some real mechanical things like the systems that underpin their impact assessment procedures in their individual agencies. So impact assessment now has around about 56 members in that one community of practice. They represent different levels of government and they do different types of impact assessment. Some do social assessment, cultural and environmental. Others focus on a particular component of impact assessment like biodiversity. But they all have one thing in common. They're all regulators that do impact assessment. So these communities of practice, including the impact assessment community of practice, are concentrated hubs where you get access to practitioners who do the same day job as you. So the thing that I generally encourage members to do when they're considering joining the group, any group, is ensure that the group that you're going to join reflects your day job, because that's good for your career, it's good for your team, and it's good for your agency, because you'll be being supported by other practitioners who also do that as their day job. So that's impact assessment. But in saying that, there's a story for all of them. I'll just talk quickly about the diversity in inclusion in these communities of practice. They're not all just for practitioners with their tool belts still around their hips, or senior executives, but they're for everyone in that area of regulation. This is our communications, education and engagement community of practice. It's led by Paula Nape, who's the General Manager of Engagement in the EPA in New Zealand. And it has Lucy's a member of that community of practice. Lucy is a local government practitioner. There's a number of state government practitioners in biodiversity there, Danielle, and in water there, Merrin. Belinda is from a federal agency, and so is Catherine. She's from a federal agency as well in the Reef Authority, the Great Barrier Reef Authority. There's also non-environmental regulators in there, like Ruth Hutchison, because the thing that they've all got in common in this community of practice and all the others is that they're regulators. They're all regulators, and they all practice in communication, education, and engagement. So it's a concentrated hub for people to share stories, share strategies, and resources within that hub. Just quickly, another one I thought I'd like to really kind of demonstrate that we have a First Peoples Environmental Regulators Community of Practice. That's been going for about 2.5 years. And at the moment, they're engaging with each other about increasing Indigenous voice in environmental law and regulation through things like knowledge groups, and making our agencies stronger for it. That membership has both Australian and New Zealand Indigenous and non-Indigenous members in that group, just to propel some of those matters forward, like cultural load and others. So there's some examples. Communities of practice is where the sharing happens. Sometimes there's nothing to share because it needs creating. As I mentioned before, AELERT's got a platform for that cross-jurisdictional interagency work to happen. We've got 7 work programs currently. 6 of the 7 came from the communities of practice and discussions within those communities of practice. I won't go through them all, but they're all matters that different agencies find challenging, like generating regulatory priorities and outcomes performance measures to show a regulatory agency's value and worth to government. There's also a program which I'll go into a sec about lithium-ion batteries, and in Australia and New Zealand, particularly across the states of Australia, it's an issue with our incident management crew as well as our waste regulators right across Australia. The other areas we're building and refreshing our regulatory capability tools, which help regulatory practitioners build their confidence and competence to do the job. I'll just tell you a quick story about the lithium-ion battery program. We're about halfway through. It's an operational program. It's not about stewardship. It's not about mapping the laws. It's about how it works on the ground. Because practitioners are seeing more and more fires across Australia that are started from lithium-ion batteries, and it's probably going to get worse without good intervention from regulators. So the job there, it came out of 2 communities of practice: our emergency operations community of practice and our waste crime community of practice. They've got together to map out, well, where are the acute risks so regulators can intervene before they become incidents. But they're also getting together to work out, well, what's the best way to respond to a lithium-ion battery fire? What's the best way to respond? rather than each and every agency or jurisdiction doing it on their own, they're doing it together, and we're stronger together for it. So that's happening. So all members will get access to those best practice guides once they're generated. Just quickly, as members, they get access to a regulatory officer capability framework. So it's a capability framework for our staff, for our people, for our managers, and for our leaders. This is about building strong, capable people in organisations that are confident and competent to do the job. So rather than having a guess and just basing it on what training programs are around at a particular point in time, it puts structure around the growth of individuals and measures that through a self-assessment tool. There's core capabilities and there's some specific capabilities for different types of regulatory craft. But all in all, that helps managers and their staff take the guesswork out of, number one, where individuals are at, but also, number two, what they should focus on next in terms of their capability build to do the job. Now, the other thing members get access to, now this is the best tool in the AELERT kit by a mile. It helps regulators, regulatory leaders know where their agencies is at. So if the regulatory officer capability tool takes out the guesswork for an individual, this takes out the guesswork for an agency. So this is about building strong agencies, and with strong agencies, we have strong people and a strong regulatory environment that makes us more resilient to change. That's inevitable. That's out of our control. So the Modern Regulator Improvement Tool was created by AELERT members 10 years ago. It hasn't changed much since then, although we're refreshing it to just tighten some of the measures on what it means to be a leading regulator with an eye on regulatory stewardship. In other words, if you're a leading regulator, you should be active and have dedicated resources in helping out your peer agencies become more mature and resilient. So the Modern Regulator Improvement Tool, there's 12 attributes, 6 maturity levels it covers. They're all internal and external facing attributes of what it takes to make a strong agency. And it enables leaders to measure their growth over time based on some targeted action. Now, how it plays out is no agency has ever focused on 12 attributes at a time. They pick off 2 or 3. And what that does, it gives the agency poise and measure in a measured way of saying, strategically, we're focused on these 2 or 3 attributes. We're focused, say, for instance, on governance and oversight, or risk-based approach, or training and procedures, which is all about building people up. But what it does, it gives leaders a handle, a good, systematic and objective handle, not only where they're at, but where they should be headed as an agency. Just quickly, it was never designed to be done alone. We've put in place some mechanisms so agencies can support each other. One's a twinning program, which pairs up 2 regulatory agencies, so they're not alone. And the other one is the organisational community of practice, which is there's 42 practitioners in that who specialise in organisational maturity. I'm going to fly through the rest. We've got domestic partners and international partners in all the continents. I have my fingers, my toes, my hair, my eyebrows, everything cross for us to have a Pacific partner in SREP. But what the partnerships do is it gives all of our members accessibility to other regulators across the globe, because the European Union and the US EPA have gone along the journey of building outcomes performance measures. and our people are working and using their experience to work on outcomes, performance measures for AELERT members. So we've got a lot to learn across the networks. And finally, I just want to touch on, with the idea of those partnerships in mind, we're hosting a global summit at the end of the year. Now, it's going to make my hair go very grey, getting that thing up and running, if I don't lose it all. But it's in between the 5th and the 7th of November in Brisbane. It'll be a time for regulators right across the globe, and hopefully from the Pacific as well, to not only engage on specific environmental law and regulation that reflects their day job, like climate change, like incident management, like fisheries or illegal logging or mining, but generic topics that is relevant to all regulators, like law design for implementers, or advanced monitoring, keeping our people safe. But importantly, those structures of a regulatory agency, like maturity and capability. So that's what's happening towards the end of the year. We're hosting a global summit. The key theme that's going to be at the bookends, the first thing and the last thing, is going to be Indigenous voice in environmental law and regulation. And then it's going to be followed by some plenary sessions and then some breakout sessions in those specific topics to really set the platform for 2025 and 2026 on how we get better together. So that's it. There's some practical things there, like the resource library, like the groups, but particularly like some of the products, the agency and practitioner products that AELERT offers its members. I'd like to now hand back over to Ivan for any comments of the panel, or Andre, would you like to add anything there?
I'll just say it's fantastic to see that the Pacific Network for Environmental Assessment working, functioning, and having such good engagement. It was, when I guess became aware of SPREP and had a meeting to discuss the role of how AELERT may be able to assist. It's great to see a mature organisation there. We all know the benefit of collaborating and relying and getting further information and sharing with our peers, and because it's critical to get a better outcome. There's so many emerging issues now facing us as environmental regulators and water regulators, and I can only see that increasing. So the benefits of collaboration are really, far outweigh the efforts put in to establish those. So I do really encourage, again, as Greg said, any questions, we're open to discuss them now or later. But for me, I really did see engaging with my New Zealand colleagues and colleagues in the eastern states of Australia around emerging issues that were facing me at the time and facing our department in Western Australia, both significant environmental regulatory issues around, I guess, the renewable energy space. There's massive benefits, but there are also risks, as we saw with lithium ion, in the same way around established processes around oil and gas processing. There's a lot of issues that interface both the water space and the environment with these industries that we do need to rely on our colleagues to get ahead of them. So, yep, back to you, Ivan, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Greg and Andre, for that extensive overview and introduction to AELERT. As someone who has been introduced to the platform before, even through this presentation today, I've been able to gain a lot more insights into the resources and the platforms that you provide. So thank you so much for that eye-opening overview. Like my colleague Vi, shared earlier, partnerships are essential. Collaborations are essential, especially in this space. So it's truly an opportunity for us and yourselves to look into how we can partner and advance environmental practice, but also more widely environmental governance. So thank you so much for that overview. And colleagues, please, the floor is open. We have Andre and Greg here with us, so please let it fly. Any questions, any thoughts? Maybe how you think being part of the AELERT network can contribute to your work specifically or to your organization. And yes, any key thoughts on the presentation? Amo, I can see you on the call. Any thoughts?
Hi there. Sorry, I'm on the side. Yeah, no, I don't have any thoughts. I was just sitting in on this today just to get a good overview. Like I'm in the private consulting area, but I do actually work on projects both in Solomon Islands at the moment and also in Papua New Guinea. So really interested in knowing, where things are at. I think that it was very useful to understand that while I can't become a sort of an agency member, that I can become an individual member through with my company in order to get an update. I'm particularly interested in, procedures around not so much around the compliance, but more into the impact assessment area. That's my area of focus. And facing some sort of challenges, particularly around where you have local regulations, and then also you have, international requirements as well, and how to manage those can be quite challenging. That's the particular area of focus for me. But I found this very informative to find out a bit more about this and what's available through the resources, etc. So while you were talking, Andre and Greg, I was actually having a peek at the website.
Thank you. And one of the essence of AELERT is to grow our collective capabilities right across the regulatory landscape at all levels of government, and that makes regulators more efficient and effective in what they do. That makes the laws more effective at nailing the objective of the law. And it covers the whole system. It covers the lawmakers all the way through to the litigators and everything in between, and there's a lot in between. Nothing substantial there, sorry, Carmen, but that's the DNA of what AELERT has been for the last 20 years, and hopefully for the next, if we can survive for the next 20 years, is that it's there to make regulators more efficient and effective. That includes impact assessment, but it also includes all the downstream part of impact assessment, like post approvals monitoring and compliance and enforcement, the whole lot.
Well,
so it's not kicking the can down.
I think that's the key challenges. It's if when you do the impact assessment, you tend to be in the area of you're hoping for the best, but the reality starts kicking in when resources or agencies are not able to deliver on that compliance, and monitor the activities, let's say, of private industries and others around projects and impact management.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thanks for that, for your insights there, Carmen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Colleagues, the floor is still open. We have a few more minutes, so any burning thoughts or questions, please throw them in the chat or just come online, like comment and share your thoughts with us. Maybe while we wait for any other questions, I just had one question, Greg and Andre. Now the assumption is the AELERT network is open to Pacific practitioners, correct? And so can you share with us perhaps what is required to be a part of the network? Do you need any sort of accreditation or certification as an environmental practitioner? What is the cost to be part of the network? And any such details around becoming a part of the network?
Andre, would you like me to answer that? I'm probably in a better position to answer that one. Ivan, I think it would be really efficient for AELERT to work through SREP to have access. There's the alternative of all the individuals and all the agencies take out membership, but AELERT is membership based. We're definitely committed to using the good work from your organisation and your network to provide that extra surface area. So there are three options really to work with you in terms of providing that network access to Pacific Island regulators as agencies. There's also an option of individual agencies joining AELERT, like Seabed Minerals Authority in the Cook Islands joined a month or two ago, based on their connections with the South Australian regulator and NOPSEMA, the Commonwealth regulator in Australia. And then the third option is individuals take membership. Now, we have very few individuals who are AELERT members. I think we've got one, but we've got 250 agencies with about 3,000 people in those 250 agencies who have access to the network via their workplace. And that's really the common structure. But if you look at those three modes, I definitely prefer mode one, which is working through your organisation as a conduit for regulators and as a support. That way our agencies really enjoy that partnership that are hopefully looking forward to in the future. In terms of money, there's different levels of membership based on the size of the agency. So small agencies pay the smallest fee, annual fee. The largest agencies, like one of the federal government agencies in Australia, pay an unlimited membership fee, which it's all based on size of regulators within that agency. So it's tiered. The fee membership fee scale is tiered based on size of agency. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Greg. That's very helpful, and I'm sure it'll be helpful to our participants. Colleagues, I don't see any questions or any hands. In fact, I see thanks. So I think Greg and Andre, your presentation was really straightforward and easy to comprehend. So perhaps I don't think we have any questions from the floor. But colleagues, remember, we do have the PNEA. So any thoughts or questions you may have for Greg, Andre, please feel free to drop those discussions on PNEA discussion. And I think we have a comment here from Brendan. Just bring that up. Brendan is just sharing his thanks. He's really impressed with the initiative and thinking of that arrangement with Papua New Guinea case. And I think that's a very interesting question, is how, government agencies or government organizations can be part of AELERT, especially the regulatory agencies, the environmental agencies. Do you have precedents for agencies? I heard you mention the Seabed Minerals Authority, Climate. I think that's a good study. Do you have any more examples, perhaps, for the region?
Not too many. In the past, the Solomon Islands Ministry was an AELERT member, but not too many. With most of our agencies are based in New Zealand or Australia. Most of them are in Australia and about 20 in New Zealand, but they're agency-based membership. So the agencies join as members. But that was part of the spark for AELERT to say, well, this is a regulatory stewardship network, and it should extend if Pacific Island nations and their regulators are open to it. It should extend to providing that support to Pacific Island regulators, because many of the issues in Australia and New Zealand have overlap or common threads in the Pacific Islands. And I just want to finish off by saying it is a two-way street. The AELERT existing AELERT membership will learn a lot from Pacific Island regulators. It's not a one-way street of Australian regulators supporting Pacific, but it will be a two-way street, and that's one of the real benefits of a potential future partnership with your agency, Ivan.
Absolutely, and hopefully one day it'll be called PALERT rather than Pacific Australasian.
That sounds even better. Yeah.
I'll have to get all the logos changed, but anyway, that can be done.
Yes. But thank you so much, Greg and Andre. I see that it's already 4 minutes past the hour. So I think we've had an extensive discussion today. Just looking at my colleagues here, just wondering if there's any final thoughts from your ends. That's it? No? I think everybody is satisfied, and we keep getting more thanks in the chat. So thank you so much, everybody, especially our presenters, Greg and Andre. Thank you, Camo. Thank you, everyone. And let's keep the discussion going. Like I mentioned, please join us on the PNEA platform. We have a discussion forum. We can continue to discuss the impressive presentation and discussion we've had today. And we'll also be reaching out with to you all with a recording of this discussion in case you might want to revisit and refresh your memories. But from us here, on behalf of the team here, we'd like to say thank you so much and look forward to our next webinar. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. See you, everyone.
Yeah.